Marshall, it's
Howdy.
great. It's great to see you again. You're very welcome.
Thank you.
Marshall, we're going to go face first right now, right into this topic, because it's something that I see when you do your live streams, you're incredibly passionate about classical music. And out of the many composers the array of composers that you avail to your live stream viewers, you come back to a lot of the names that we've heard a lot. And one of those names is Bach. You've transcribed and you've arranged many Bach transcriptions, and they're incredible. And I wonder if you could just briefly tell us, like, why is Bach important?
He's sort of the, grandfather of all Western music. It's like he is said to have discovered how the key signatures work and worked all that out, our whole 12 note system and circle of fifths and all that. And key signatures and all that. He pretty much set that in stone. It was kind of like there are different notation systems, and he sort of locked it all down. And so he had a lot of children, so they could spread the word. He was from a musical family. He's like the something generation of a Kapellmeister. He's wrote music for his church, Sunday proceedings, and he usually didn't have paper, and they would find his pieces like wrapping up like food and sandwiches and things, and it'd be like an incredible awesome composition. So he's just he was also a huge fan of music. He was called before the king. And the king asked him to improvise a four-voice fugue on the spot on this theme that the king wrote. And he said, "I can't do that, but I can do three. I can improvise a three-voice suite or fugue. I mean, and and even that's incredible to be able to. I mean, that's like three improvisations at the same time. Bass, middle. So soprano, alto, tenor, bass. So yeah, it's incredible. He was amazing. And so I tried to arrange. He wrote for the piano because he set up this whole system of a equal temperament. And this is new tuning system where like you can switch to different keys, and even though they're all a little bit out of tune, they're not perfectly in tune. You can switch to different keys, and everything's equally out of tune, so to speak. But you're so used to it that it sounds great. It sounds fine. Now we're so to the point where any other tuning system, it sounds like it's so ingrained. It sounds out of tune to me, basically. So
Right.
yeah,
It's much like how the piano is tuned now.
yes, exactly. And so he wrote the Welltempered Clavier, tempered, and there's like, so he went through this. He wrote a prelude and fugue for each note. Started in C major, then the C minor, C sharp major, C sharp minor, D major, D minor, prelude and fugue for each major and minor, going all the way through. And then he had so much fun, he did book 2, and he just went around again and started in C major. So, but anyway, if you try and play that on guitar, you get to the point where the bass has to come in, and see, it's really low, and it's like, well, what do you do? So I would like take all those notes, move them up an octave or so, 2 octaves, and it works pretty well. And so now it's like, so I've done this on a few of them, and you have a consistent, nice etude now instead of just a prelude.
Now, what is the difference between that which you did for electric guitar and the many classical guitarists we see on YouTube? Like if you type in Bach and guitar, there is a plethora of classical guitar players.
Well,
and so how is it different for electric guitar?
Well, so the thing I'm doing is I'm just doing it for like a single note because I like to play with a little bit of overdrive and gain. I love that sound, and so I'm going to play with that till the day I die. And so, but those pieces are written because Bach wrote for the lute. He wrote for the guitar that was around at the time, and they play those. And some of them have arranged like what we just talked about, the Well-Tempered Clavier, the Preludes and Fugues for classical guitar, and they can play all the voicings at once, the different voices coming in. It's amazing. They're incredible. I'm not anywhere near that level on guitar, but for single note stuff, I like just, they're like lines. They're more like a jazz rock sort of a line kind of thing is what I'm into, because I mean, you get to try and get the two voices going. Not only is it insanely difficult for me, but it also the overdrive makes it not work so well. So yeah,
right.
that's what I do.
And there is a very thick thread of logic in Bach's music. And I know you, as being a mathematician, also that must strike a chord with you. No pun intended.
Yeah. No, yeah, it's once you study, you don't need to know much theory because the harmonies aren't really that complex, but there's counterpoint, and a lot of times it's just free counterpoint, but a lot of times he's using the techniques of augmentation, diminution. He's like either stretching out a line or compacting it really fast. Oh, and so it's really cool how he can you'll see the same thing, same line, but like real fast or real slowed out in the bass, really largo. So it's fascinating to see when you just learn a little bit about it. Because I don't know all that much. I mean, I'm not an expert on Bach by any means, but I do know I have transcribed a few pieces on my own, and I have played and performed a few, and it's quite satisfying to get it right.
And what do you think about the melodic content, the motifs, and the development? How has that helped your playing?
Yeah. Well, first you learn kind of like not like that there you get rules to cage you in, but you learn about like how contours work and how like what kind of really the ear just like it just can't hear, like try and do a bunch of intervals, and you try and do like maybe a leap after a skip. There's skips and leaps in music and in melodies, and if you try and jumble it up and don't kind of adhere to the rules, because you can adhere to these rules and then pick any notes you want, so you're still just as creative, just about. You just don't have like orders of magnitude of creativity at your disposal. I'm sorry, I mean, but that's the fun of art, is to like like a sonnet. Let's see if you can follow it was one little tiny rule, and then like and see what you can do with it. Let's see where you can go take it. So
and for people who are watching who don't know the difference between a skip and a leap, can you explain that?
okay, like a skip is like a second, just a scale degree next to each other, and a leap is anything else. So
Perfect.
simple as, yeah.
And what about the speed at which these pieces are played at? Are they played at impossible speeds? Do you have to play this thing, one of his pieces at a speed that is very challenging, or can this sound good slow as well as fast?
Yeah, I've heard it sound great. I mean, you can pick either in the repertoire and the recorded literature. There's tons of different tempo you can take, and I've heard it sound great at all different ones. You can hear Nicholas Economou just burn the living crap out of the first 6 preludes of the Well-Tempered Clavier and fugues, by the way. But you can also, I've heard people take it slower. It's however fast you want to take it. But generally for guitar, we have not had the technique to really play some of these things up to tempo until now. I couldn't do it until I really had like a worked out system that I call SWYBRD that helped me with leaps and just playing as economically as possible. And you can get that from my website, swybrddnation.com. I have to keep it moving so it won't blur out. But yeah, that's this is my book that outlines the principles of SWYBRD picking, and then I have a whole nother volume on Bach, just concentrating on Bach with SWYBRD picking, and it's a way to manage the technical difficulties and still stay up to tempo, because that's another. I mean, you can try, but I mean, it's you got to have the technique to stay up to tempo. So
I've seen a lot of people struggle with the Bach partitas and sonatas, and I think that actually was one of Mike Stern's things. That's how he used. I mean, that's what he used to develop his technique.
yeah.
I never heard it from him that he said that, but I'd heard from a lot of people that that's what he was reading. I'm not sure.
Yes, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I'm not sure if at that time all the jazzers were reading that, because, you know, like the way it works is that, you know, they hear, you know, one guy hears Mike Stern is reading Bach partitas and sonatas, and now we all have to do it.
Yeah.
You know? But maybe you can show us right now what that looks like and why SWYBRD picking is so important to actually executing this.
A lot of guys, the jazz guys in LA, studio guys, followed a man named Howard Roberts. He started GIT, so he has, you know, a lot of clout in that scene and knew everybody. He's on every recording. He played the Twilight Zone theme. That's a guitar riff.
I didn't know that, actually.
Yes, it is. It's cool. It's a really cool little trick you can do with. But anyway, enough about that. Enough about the Twilight Zone. So he wrote a book called Super Chops. He got into education big time. I mean, he started a whole guitar school, you know, trade school. It's pretty amazing. He and Don Mock. And so, but he has a book called Super Chops, and in it he has mainly the whole it works out to, it amounts to single note runs, just eighth notes, and then move up to faster as move the metronome up, you know. But so the perpetual motion, that amounts to a perpetual motion type of piece, right? But he's just doing it over jazzy chords, which is probably even harder. But the Bach and then maybe Paganini, Chopin, if you want to take it even further, that really elevates your technique. Just quantum leaps. I know that's a misnomer, because a quantum leap is very like the smallest distance probably in the physical universe. But most people call it a quantum leap, you know.
I think you just messed up like every coercive guitar chorus advert that's available.
Yeah, it's a very microscopically, you know, insanely small distance. But yeah, so the perpetual motion, then you want to move on to Paganini's perpetual motion. See, all the composers, there's a Camille Saint-Saëns wrote a perpetual great piece that I played, and that really, the more you get of those under your belt, wow, it's the more you can do on the instrument.
Is that where you feel like your technique really made quantum? What is the opposite of quantum leap?
God, a universal leap.
Okay. Well, do you feel like that your technique really blew up after you went through those, or did it happen earlier?
Yeah, it when I started seeing, I was all like regular guitar study materials up until 1994, and I started in '88. So I had 6 years of just Paul Gilbert, REH videos, Yngwie books, you know, all that stuff. then other instruments started, and then because Sean Lane said to do that in 1993, his REH video, I was like, okay, he's pretty good. Maybe I should do what he says. And so I did it. I looked into, Art Tatum, Oscar Peterson, Chopin, Liszt, on and on, Bach. And so, when you do that, and I barely knew what I was doing. I could barely read. I was like, okay, that's a C. That's okay. I could barely read the books, but I got a few of those under my belt, and it just, it was different. It's just different learning materials than everyone else. So that's what set me apart, was able, taking taking Sean Lane quite literally, and learning from the masters themselves.
How can we learn these pieces and use them other than just as a technique, booster?
Well, so I'm going to need some help, because I've transcribed maybe like one or two where I went through and took the the prelude of the Well-Tempered Clavier and worked it into an etude for a single voice, where I moved the bass melody up to the to the guitar's register. So I've done that on like two. Yeah, I did the F major and the G major of the book one, and I didn't even look at book two. Well, I mean, I wasn't as inspired as book two. I love book one. It's just, I mean, he's like it. It's like a sequel. It can't be as good as the original. It just can't. It can't, except for The Godfather. But that's something else. The exception proves the rule. No, but see, so you can, if people need to learn the material, and then they can use that and go different ways with it. So there's still plenty of music. And then, I mean, there's all the cantatas, and Sean Lane got into some of those, and there's just so much more music. And then there's the violin. He wrote violin music. He wrote the cello suites. Paul Gilbert played one of those. There's tons more music that Bach wrote. And then his sons, CPE Bach, Christian Bach, all the sons wrote great music, and they took it. You can see them taking it further than their dad. It's but he only had 20 children. Not all of them survived childhood back then, because it was a mini ice age. But they did really well, and they're geniuses too, just like their dad.
In other words, there's so much catalog there that there's really endless inspiration. The Well-Tempered Clavier Book One is the one that you would say, "Hey guys, go and check it out right now."
Yes, there's a Dover edition that's they throw in book two. I mean, but you can get the Dover edition off Amazon for like maybe $9-10. You get a whole lot of awesome music for.
So what do they do when they get a manuscript like that? How do they transfer that to guitar?
Once you have the music, and to like get it under your fingers, yeah, it takes some time to, like, you have to be able to read. They're not complicated. I mean, there's you got to know the time, key signature, time signature, and value, duration of notes and all that. But you probably pick that up somewhere along the way. If this is not, if you're an intermediate level player, you can probably handle playing a few of these fugue subjects. And see, I haven't even really tackled the fugues. I mean, there's tons of material there. That's the whole half of the Well-Tempered Clavier. I haven't even really transcribed it all. So there's just tons of great stuff, and it's inspired a lot of Paul Gilbert, Yngwie Malmsteen interludes. You're gonna hear it's like, the orchestral suites from Bach. Yngwie uses all the time as live solo. So you're just going to be inspired by just hearing, the familiarity of hearing these. Oh, yeah, here it is in its original setting. It's kind of neat.
Yeah, and I think for people who are writers, not only songwriters, tune writers, that kind of cohesive melodic content going in your ear is the best thing for you. It is the best thing for you. It buffets what you already know, and it also expands your creativity, and it opens up new neural pathways. But Marshall, it would be great to hear you play some of these things. So,
well, buy my album, and you can hear the Prelude. I've recorded Prelude 5 on my album, and and the partita, the prelude from the violin suite in E major. So done a few things, and they're up to tempo. They're plenty fast, and they're clean, and I think they came off pretty well.
Well, I'll make sure that I include the link in the description below. I wanted to thank you for stopping by and turning us on to a way to play this music that I think that we're overlooking, because we always see these classical composers' names and we don't even take, pause for a second just to see, like, what did they do? Why is this music important? Why are people always talking about this composer and the genius of himself and the quantity, the sheer magnitude of the works that he's written? I think really calls us to check it out.
I agree, definitely.
So thanks again, and thanks for agreeing, because
you're very welcome.
Not have come in the mail. All right, Marcel, take care of yourself.
Thank you. Adios.